The letter from his grandfather's attorney arrived on a Tuesday, and by Thursday, Isaac Zimmerman was standing in a lawyer's office being told his billion-dollar inheritance hinged on one ridiculous condition: marriage within 6 months. "This has to be some kind of joke," Isaac said, reading the clause for the third time. His grandfather had passed 2 months ago, and Isaac had genuinely mourned the old man. They'd had their differences, sure, but Isaac had loved him. Now this felt like a betrayal from beyond the grave. "I'm afraid it's completely legitimate," the attorney said, adjusting his wire-rimmed glasses. "Your grandfather was quite specific. You must be married within 6 months of his passing, and the marriage must last at least 1 year before you can access the full inheritance. Otherwise, everything goes to the Zimmerman Foundation." Isaac ran a hand through his dark hair, frustration building in his chest. At 32, he'd built his own shipping empire from the ground up, but his grandfather's wealth was on an entirely different level. That money could expand his business globally, could secure his employees' futures for generations. And the old man had dangled it in front of him like a carrot, knowing full well Isaac had sworn off serious relationships after his last disaster 3 years ago. "What happens if I don't comply?" Isaac asked, though he already knew the answer. "The foundation gets everything. You'll receive nothing." Isaac left the office with his mind racing. 6 months. He needed a wife in 6 months, and she'd have to stick around for a year. The whole thing was archaic and insulting, but he couldn't let that money slip away. Not when it could do so much good. Not when his grandfather had spent his whole life building that fortune. He spent the next week considering his options. Every woman he knew in his social circle would jump at the chance, but they'd also see it as a real opportunity for a permanent arrangement. He needed someone who would understand this was business, nothing more. Someone who needed something badly enough to agree to a fake engagement and a year-long marriage of convenience. That's when his assistant mentioned Emma Elliott. "She's a friend from college," Caroline said, perching on the edge of Isaac's desk at his downtown office. "Brilliant architect, but she's in a tough spot right now. Her father needs a specialized surgery that insurance won't cover, and she's drowning in medical debt from her mother's cancer treatment last year." "Why are you telling me this?" Isaac asked, though his interest was already piqued. "Because you need a wife, and she needs money. Emma's practical, honest, and she'd never try to trap you into something real. She's actually pretty cynical about love after her ex cheated on her with her former best friend." Isaac considered this a business transaction. Clean, simple, mutually beneficial. "Set up a meeting," he said. 3 days later, Isaac found himself in a small coffee shop in Brooklyn, waiting for a woman he'd never met. When Emma Elliott walked through the door, he straightened in his seat, caught off guard by the immediate pull of attraction. She was beautiful, yes, with long auburn hair and striking green eyes, but there was something else. The way she carried herself, perhaps. Confident but not arrogant, dressed simply in jeans and a cream sweater, with paint stains on her fingers that suggested she'd come straight from work. "Isaac Zimmerman?" she asked, approaching his table. Her voice was warm but cautious. "Emma, thank you for coming." He stood, shaking her hand. Her grip was firm, her palm slightly rough. She actually worked with her hands, he realized. It was refreshing. They sat, and for a moment an awkward silence stretched between them. Emma broke it first. "Caroline told me about your situation," she said. "I'm not going to pretend this isn't strange, because it absolutely is, but I'm listening." Isaac appreciated her directness. "My grandfather left his entire fortune contingent on me being married within 6 months. The marriage has to last a year. After that, we'd be free to divorce and you'd be compensated generously for your time." "How generously?" Emma asked, and he appreciated that too. No false modesty, no pretending money wasn't part of the equation. $500,000 at the end of the year, plus all expenses covered during the marriage, and I'll handle your father's surgery and any outstanding medical debts immediately. Emma's eyes widened slightly. That's more than generous. I need someone I can trust to stick to the agreement. Someone who won't try to extend it or make claims on the actual inheritance. Caroline vouched for your character. Caroline's a good friend, Emma said softly. Then she met his eyes directly. Can I be honest with you, please? This money would change my life. My father's surgery is scheduled in 2 weeks, but I had to postpone it because I don't have the funds. I'm working 3 jobs right now and barely making a dent in the debt. But I need to know this is really just business. I'm not interested in being someone's trophy wife or playing games. I've been hurt before, and I'm not looking for complications. Neither am I, Isaac assured her. This would be purely transactional. We'd need to convince my family and the legal team overseeing the inheritance that it's real, but between us, it would be a business arrangement. After a year, we divorce amicably and we both get what we need. Emma studied him for a long moment. Isaac found himself hoping she'd say yes, and not just because he needed a solution. Something about her intrigued him, made him want to know more. Okay, she finally said. I'll do it. But I want everything in writing, and I want my own lawyer to look over the contract. Absolutely. I wouldn't expect anything less. They shook hands again, and Isaac felt a strange flutter in his chest. He pushed it aside. This was business, nothing more. The next 2 weeks moved at breakneck speed. Lawyers drew up contracts. Emma's father got his surgery successfully, and Isaac introduced Emma to his family as his fiancée. His mother was thrilled, his sister skeptical but supportive, and his younger brother just laughed and said it was about time. She seems lovely, his mother said at their engagement dinner. But Isaac, are you sure? This feels very sudden. When you know, Isaac said, the lie tasting bitter on his tongue. Beside him, Emma squeezed his hand, playing her part perfectly. She'd insisted on a modest engagement ring, nothing ostentatious, and wore a simple blue dress that somehow made her look more beautiful than all the designer-clad women he'd dated before. How did you two meet? His sister Jennifer asked, watching them carefully. Emma fielded this one. They'd rehearsed the story. Through Caroline. She introduced us at a gallery opening last year, but Isaac was dating someone else at the time. We reconnected a few months ago and things just clicked. It was plausible enough that no one questioned it, though Jennifer kept giving Isaac knowing looks he chose to ignore. The real challenge came when Emma moved into his penthouse apartment in Manhattan. Isaac had assumed they'd maintain separate lives within the space, but reality proved more complicated. The first morning, he walked into the kitchen to find Emma making coffee in an oversized T-shirt and shorts, her hair piled on top of her head, humming along to music playing from her phone. "Good morning," she said brightly, seemingly unbothered by the intimacy of the situation. "I made extra coffee. Fair warning, it's strong." "Strong is good," Isaac said, accepting the mug she offered. Their fingers brushed, and he felt that flutter again. He definitely needed to get that under control. "I was thinking about the living arrangements," Emma said, leaning against the counter. "Caroline mentioned you work late most nights, and I'm usually at the studio until at least 8. We should coordinate schedules so we're not constantly in each other's way." "That makes sense," Isaac agreed, though part of him wondered why the thought of limited interaction disappointed him. "I usually leave by 7, don't get back until 9 or 10. Perfect." "I'm an early riser, so mornings work better for me anyway." She paused. "This is weird, isn't it? Playing house with a stranger." "We're not strangers," Isaac found himself saying. "We're business partners." Emma's smile was genuine. I like that better, business partners. But over the following weeks, something shifted. They fell into an easy routine that felt less like a business arrangement and more like actual companionship. Emma would leave sketches and notes scattered across the dining table, and Isaac found himself looking forward to seeing her creative chaos. She started joining him for dinner when their schedules aligned, and their conversations ranged from architecture and shipping logistics to childhood memories and favorite books. "My grandfather would have liked you," Isaac said one evening, 2 months into their arrangement. They were eating Thai takeout on the couch, some cooking competition show playing in the background. "Yeah?" Emma asked, looking up from her pad Thai. "You're practical but creative. That was his whole philosophy. Build something real but never lose sight of the bigger picture." Isaac found himself sharing stories about the old man he'd never told anyone else. How his grandfather had taken him to the shipyards when he was 10 and taught him every position from the ground up. How he'd valued hard work over privilege. "He sounds like a complicated man," Emma said thoughtfully. "Loving but stubborn." "That's exactly right." Isaac studied her. "How's your father recovering?" "Really well, actually. The surgery was a complete success. He keeps asking when he can meet my mysterious billionaire fiancé." Emma's expression turned slightly guilty. "I hate lying to him. He's so happy for me." "We could visit him," Isaac suggested. "Play the part for real. It might make you feel better." "You do that, Emma. We're in this together. Your family is part of the deal." They visited Emma's father the following weekend at his home in New Jersey. Thomas Elliott was a warm, jovial man who'd been a construction worker for 40 years, and he greeted Isaac with a firm handshake and knowing eyes. "So you're the man who swept my daughter off her feet," Thomas said, settling into his recliner. "Must be something special about you. Emma doesn't let just anyone in." "Dad," Emma protested, her cheeks flushing. "It's true, sweetheart. You've got your mother's cautious heart." Thomas's expression softened with memory. "She passed 2 years ago, cancer." "I'm sorry," Isaac said, and meant it. He'd lost his own father young. Emma nursed her through it all while building her career. That's the kind of woman she is. Loyal, strong, stubborn as hell. Thomas fixed Isaac with a serious look. "You take care of her, you hear me?" "I promise," Isaac said, and the weight of that promise felt heavier than it should for a fake engagement. Later, as they drove back to the city, Emma was quiet. "You okay?" Isaac asked. "My dad really likes you." "Everyone likes you." She turned to look at him. "This would be easier if you were awful, if this felt completely fake. But it doesn't." Isaac's heart rate picked up. "No, it doesn't. We're becoming friends, and that's going to make the end harder." Emma's voice was soft, honest. "I know what we agreed to, but I need to protect myself. So maybe we should maintain more distance." Isaac's hands tightened on the steering wheel. She was right, of course. Getting attached would complicate everything. But the thought of pulling away from Emma made his chest ache in a way he didn't want to examine. "If that's what you want," he said carefully, "it's not about what I want. It's about what makes sense." They spent the next week barely seeing each other, and Isaac hated every minute of it. The apartment felt empty without Emma's presence, without her laughter and her terrible singing in the shower, and the way she'd steal his coffee, even though she'd made her own. He threw himself into work, but even closing a major new shipping contract didn't fill the hollow feeling that had taken up residence in his chest. His sister noticed during their weekly lunch meeting. "You look miserable," Jennifer said bluntly. "Trouble in paradise." "There's no paradise." "It's fine." "Isaac, I've known you your whole life. You're not fine." Jennifer set down her fork. "I'm going to ask you something, and I want you to be honest with yourself, even if you lie to me. Are you in love with Emma?" "That's ridiculous. We barely know each other." You've been living together for 2 months and I've watched you at family dinners. The way you look at her isn't fake." Jennifer's expression softened. "Why did you really agree to grandfather's terms? You could have let the money go to the foundation. You're already successful." Isaac didn't have a good answer. The truth was, he'd initially justified it as business, but somewhere along the way, the inheritance had become less important than the woman sharing his apartment. "I should get back to the office," he said, avoiding the question. "You're an idiot," Jennifer called after him as he left. That night, Isaac came home early for the first time in a week. Emma was in the living room, working on a large architectural model, her hair falling out of its bun, her face scrunched in concentration. She looked beautiful and focused and entirely herself, and Isaac realized with sudden, terrifying clarity that his sister was right. He was in love with Emma Elliott. "Hey," he said, and she jumped slightly. "You're home early. We need to talk." Emma's face fell. "Okay, that sounds ominous." Isaac sat down across from her. "This arrangement we have, the distance you wanted to maintain, I can't do it." "Isaac, let me finish. I know what we agreed to. I know this is supposed to be temporary and transactional. But somewhere between the coffee mornings and the late-night conversations and watching you befriend my entire family, I forgot this was supposed to be fake." He took a breath. "I have feelings for you, Emma. Real ones." The silence that followed felt eternal. Emma's eyes were wide, her expression unreadable. "You can't," she finally whispered. "Why not?" "Because this isn't real. Because in 10 months we're supposed to divorce and go our separate ways. Because I can't," her voice broke. "Because I'm already halfway in love with you, and if you're saying this just because the arrangement is convenient or comfortable, it'll destroy me." Isaac's heart soared and plummeted simultaneously. "You have feelings for me. Of course I do. You're brilliant and kind and you make me laugh. You paid for my father's surgery without hesitation. You remember how I take my coffee and you leave me notes when you have early meetings. You fit into my life like you were always supposed to be there." Tears spilled down Emma's cheeks. "But I need to know this is real. Not because of your grandfather's will, not because it's convenient, but because you actually want me." Isaac moved to sit beside her, gently wiping her tears with his thumb. "Emma, the inheritance stopped mattering weeks ago. I want to wake up next to you every morning. I want to hear about your day and your dreams and every random thought that crosses your mind. I want to meet your college friends and take you to meet my extended family and build something real with you. If you'll have me." "This wasn't supposed to happen," Emma said, but she was leaning into his touch. "Best laid plans," Isaac murmured, and then he kissed her. It was nothing like the chaste pecks they'd exchanged for appearances at family gatherings. This was real and desperate and full of weeks of suppressed longing. Emma's hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer, and Isaac poured everything he'd been feeling into the kiss. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Emma's smile was radiant. "So we're really doing this?" she asked. "For real this time? For real, no more fake engagement, this is genuine." Emma laughed, the sound bright and joyous. "Your grandfather's plan actually worked." "The old man was craftier than I gave him credit for," Isaac admitted, pulling her into his arms. "Turns out he knew exactly what he was doing." They spent the rest of the night talking, sharing everything they'd held back. Emma told him about her dreams of designing sustainable housing for low-income families. Isaac confessed his fear of ending up alone like his grandfather had been in his final years. They laughed and kissed and ordered pizza at midnight, and it felt like the beginning of something real and lasting. The next morning, Isaac woke to Emma sketching in bed beside him, morning light streaming through the windows. "What are you working on?" he asked, voice rough with sleep. "Just an idea." A community center design I've been playing with. She showed him the sketch, and he was struck again by her talent. It's beautiful. You should submit it to that firm you mentioned, the one doing the affordable housing project. Emma bit her lip. They only accept proposals from established architects. I don't have enough credentials yet. What if you did? An idea was forming in Isaac's mind. What if you opened your own firm? I could invest, help you get off the ground. Not because of our relationship, he added quickly, seeing her expression. Because you're talented and the work you want to do matters. Isaac, I can't let you do that. Why not? I invest in promising ventures all the time. This would be legitimate business. He sat up, warming to the idea. Think about it. Your own firm, your own projects. You could focus on the sustainable housing you're passionate about. Emma was quiet for a long moment. Can I think about it? Of course. She set aside her sketchbook and curled into his side. Thank you for believing in me, always. The following months were a whirlwind of happiness. They told Caroline the truth, who just laughed and said she'd known they'd fall for each other. They came clean to Emma's father, who admitted he'd suspected the engagement was arranged, but was thrilled it had become real. Isaac's family was equally unsurprised and supportive. I knew from the engagement dinner, Jennifer said. The way you looked at each other was too intense to be fake. Emma eventually agreed to let Isaac invest in her architectural firm, and within 3 months, she'd landed her first major project designing a sustainable apartment complex for young families. Watching her present her plans to the development board, confident and passionate, Isaac fell even more in love. They moved past the 1-year mark of their arrangement without fanfare, both agreeing that divorce was no longer on the table. The inheritance came through, and Isaac immediately put most of it toward expanding his business and establishing a charitable foundation in his grandfather's name, focused on education and economic development. He'd be proud of you, Emma said as they toured the first scholarship recipient ceremony. You honored his legacy the right way. We honored it, Isaac corrected. Your housing project is part of the foundation's mission now, too. It was true. They'd become true partners in every sense, balancing each other's strengths and supporting each other's dreams. 2 years after their fake engagement began, Isaac took Emma back to the coffee shop where they'd first met. Why are we here? Emma asked, looking around the familiar space. Because this is where it started, where you agreed to a crazy business arrangement with a stranger. Isaac took her hand. And I want to ask you something here, for real this time. He pulled out a small velvet box, and Emma's eyes immediately filled with tears. Emma Elliott, the ring you're wearing was part of a contract. I want to replace it with something that represents what we actually are. You're my best friend, my partner, the love of my life. Will you marry me again? For real this time, with real vows and real promises. Yes, Emma said, laughing through her tears. Yes, absolutely yes. The new ring was perfect, a simple emerald surrounded by diamonds that caught the light beautifully. They kissed in the middle of the coffee shop to scattered applause from other patrons, and Isaac had never been happier. They planned a real wedding this time, surrounded by everyone they loved. Emma's father walked her down the aisle with tears in his eyes, and Isaac's mother sobbed throughout the entire ceremony. When they exchanged vows, there was nothing fake about the promises they made. I promise to support your dreams and challenge you to grow, Emma said, her voice clear and strong. I promise to laugh with you during the good times and hold you through the hard ones. I promise to choose you every single day for the rest of our lives. I promise to love you exactly as you are, Isaac replied. To be your partner in everything, to build a life with you that honors both our dreams. I promise to remind you of your strength when you doubt yourself, and to never take for granted the incredible gift of your love. Their kiss as husband and wife felt like a promise fulfilled, like coming home. 3 years later, Emma stood in their newly renovated brownstone in Brooklyn, looking around at the chaos of moving boxes and furniture in various states of assembly. They'd bought the place together 6 months ago, wanting something that was wholly theirs rather than his bachelor pad. Emma had designed the renovations herself, creating a space that blended both their styles perfectly. "This is insane," she called to Isaac, who was attempting to assemble a bookshelf in what would be his home office. "We have too much stuff." "That's what happens when you combine two lives," Isaac called back. "Plus, we'll need the space." Emma smiled, her hand unconsciously moving to her still flat stomach. They hadn't told anyone yet, wanted to wait until after the first trimester, but the knowledge that she was pregnant made everything feel surreal and wonderful. Isaac appeared in the doorway, covered in dust and looking adorably frustrated. "I think that bookshelf is mocking me. How are you so good at putting furniture together?" "Practice. I built half the models in architecture school." Emma crossed to him, wrapping her arms around his waist. "Take a break. We don't have to finish everything today." "You okay?" Isaac asked, studying her face. "You've seemed tired lately." "Just busy with the new project. The housing development is moving into its final phase." It wasn't entirely a lie, but Emma felt guilty keeping the pregnancy secret even from him. But she wanted to wait for the right moment, make it special. That moment came 2 weeks later, when they finally finished unpacking and christened their new home with a dinner party for their closest friends and family. After dessert, Emma stood and tapped her glass gently. "Isaac and I wanted to thank you all for being here, for celebrating this new chapter with us," she began, her heart racing. "And we have one more piece of news to share." Isaac looked confused, which made everyone laugh. Emma took his hand and placed it on her stomach. "We're having a baby." The room erupted. Isaac's expression cycled through shock, disbelief, and pure joy in rapid succession before he pulled Emma into his arms, lifting her off the ground. "Are you serious? We're going to be parents." His voice was thick with emotion. "Due in October," Emma confirmed, laughing as he spun her around carefully. "Surprise." "Best surprise ever," Isaac said, kissing her soundly. The rest of the evening was a blur of congratulations and excited planning. Emma's father looked happier than she'd seen him since before her mother passed, already planning how he'd spoil his grandchild. Isaac's mother immediately started talking about baby showers and nursery designs, and Jennifer cornered Emma in the kitchen. "You two are going to be amazing parents," she said, pulling Emma into a hug. "I'm so happy for you." "Sometimes I still can't believe this is my life," Emma admitted. 4 years ago, I was drowning in debt and working 3 jobs. Now I have a career I love, a man I adore, and a baby on the way. It feels like a dream. It's not a dream, it's what you deserve." Jennifer smiled. "Though I still can't believe you two started as a fake engagement. It's like something out of a romance novel." "Isaac's grandfather knew what he was doing," Emma said softly. "He saw something in his grandson that needed the right person to bring out. I'm just grateful I got to be that person." The pregnancy wasn't easy. Emma had terrible morning sickness for the first 4 months, and the exhaustion was overwhelming. But Isaac was there for everything, holding her hair back when she was sick, taking over dinner preparations, rubbing her feet when they swelled. He read every pregnancy book he could find and attended every doctor's appointment, asking detailed questions that made Emma love him even more. "You're going to be an incredible father," she told him one night as they lay in bed, his hand resting on her growing bump. "I hope so. I'm terrified I'll mess it up." "We'll figure it out together," Emma assured him. just like we figure out everything else. Their daughter arrived on a crisp October morning, perfectly healthy and absolutely beautiful. They named her Margaret Rose after both their mothers, and the moment the nurse placed her in Emma's arms, everything else faded away. "She's perfect," Isaac breathed, staring at his daughter with wonder. "Look at her tiny hands." "She has your eyes," Emma said, though of course it was too early to tell. But something in Margaret's serious, contemplative expression reminded her of Isaac. "And your stubbornness, I'm sure," Isaac teased, pressing a kiss to Emma's forehead. "Thank you for everything. For taking a chance on a crazy fake engagement 4 years ago." "Best business decision I ever made," Emma said with a tired smile. They brought Margaret home to the brownstone, where grandparents and aunts and uncles waited to meet her. Watching Isaac's mother cradle her granddaughter while Emma's father looked on with shining eyes, Emma felt overwhelmed with gratitude. This family they'd built, this life they were living, had started with a contract and a desperate need for money. But it had become something neither of them could have imagined. The first months of parenthood were exhausting and wonderful in equal measure. Margaret was a relatively easy baby, but Emma and Isaac still stumbled through sleepless nights and endless diaper changes with the bewildered determination of first-time parents. Emma's firm had grown enough that she could work from home several days a week, and Isaac had restructured his schedule to be present as much as possible. "I never thought I'd be the kind of man who left meetings for bath time," Isaac said one evening, cradling a freshly bathed Margaret. "But I wouldn't trade this for anything." "You're a natural," Emma said, capturing the moment with her phone camera. The image of Isaac, still in his work clothes but with a burp cloth over his shoulder and their daughter sleeping against his chest, was one she'd treasure forever. As Margaret grew from an infant into a curious toddler, their life found a new rhythm. Emma's architecture firm was thriving, with 3 major sustainable housing projects underway and a growing reputation in the industry. Isaac's shipping company had expanded globally, but he'd also become passionate about the family foundation, working closely with Emma to identify and fund projects that made real differences in communities. "We make a good team," Emma said one Saturday morning as they watched Margaret toddle around their backyard, chasing butterflies with single-minded determination. "The best team," Isaac agreed, pulling her close. "Do you ever think about how different our lives could have been? If my grandfather hadn't put that clause in his will, if Caroline hadn't connected us, sometimes. But I think we would have found each other somehow. Maybe it would have taken longer or happened differently, but I believe some people are meant to be in each other's lives." Isaac turned to face her fully. "I love you, Emma Zimmerman. Every single day I love you more than the day before. You took a business arrangement and turned it into the greatest love story of my life. I love you too. And for the record, I stopped thinking of us as a business arrangement about 3 weeks in. I was just too stubborn to admit it." They kissed, sweet and familiar, while Margaret shrieked with delight over catching a butterfly that had landed on her hand. "Mama, Dada, look," she called, her face glowing with joy. "We see, sweetheart," Emma called back. "Isn't it beautiful, beautiful?" Margaret agreed, then promptly sat down in the grass to examine her discovery more closely. "We should probably think about giving her a sibling," Isaac said casually, and Emma laughed. "Are you saying you want more kids, Mr. Zimmerman?" "I'm saying that I want everything with you, Mrs. Zimmerman. More kids, more adventures, more mornings waking up beside you, all of it." Emma pretended to consider. "I might be convinced, but you're handling the next round of morning sickness. Deal." 2 years later, they welcomed twin boys into their family. Jacob and Jonathan arrived a month early, keeping Emma and Isaac on their toes from day one. With 3 children under 4, Life became a beautiful chaos of sippy cups, story times, and endless energy. They hired a nanny to help during work hours, but both Emma and Isaac prioritized being present for their children as much as possible. "I never imagined myself as a father of three," Isaac admitted one night after they'd finally gotten all the kids down to sleep. "But this feels right. Our family feels complete." "I agree," Emma said, curling into his side on the couch. "Though I'm definitely done being pregnant, 3 is perfect." They'd moved to a larger house in Westchester, giving the kids space to run and play. Emma had designed their home herself, creating a space that was both beautiful and functional, with a dedicated studio where she could work and a large office for Isaac. The walls were covered with family photos, capturing moments of joy and love that filled Emma's heart every time she looked at them. As the years passed, their love only deepened. They celebrated anniversaries, both the date they'd legally married for the arrangement and the date they'd married again for real. They traveled as a family, showing their children the world and teaching them about different cultures and perspectives. They continued to grow their businesses and their foundation, always working toward making a positive impact. Margaret grew into a bright, creative child with her mother's artistic talent and her father's head for business. The twins were bundles of energy, constantly getting into mischief but with hearts of gold. Watching Isaac play with their children, seeing him be the father he'd always wanted to be, made Emma fall in love with him all over again. On their 10th anniversary, Isaac surprised Emma with a weekend away, just the two of them while the grandparents watched the kids. "Where are we going?" Emma asked as they drove out of the city. "You'll see." He took her to a small inn in the Berkshires, the same place they'd gone for their honeymoon the second time around. They spent the weekend hiking, talking, and reconnecting away from the demands of children and work. "You remember what you said to me in that coffee shop?" Isaac asked as they sat by the inn's fireplace on their last night. "When I first proposed the arrangement, I said a lot of things," Emma said, "but I remember I told you I wasn't looking for complications. And I told you it would be purely transactional." Isaac shook his head. "We were both so determined to keep our hearts out of it." "Thank God we failed," Emma said. "I can't imagine my life without you, without our family. Even on the hardest days when the kids are losing their minds and work is overwhelming, I look at you and know I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." "You're everything I didn't know I needed," Isaac said softly. "My grandfather used to tell me that the right person would challenge me to be better, to build something bigger than myself. I thought he meant business, empire building. But he meant this: a family, a partnership, a life full of love and meaning." They made love that night with the tenderness of a decade together, familiar yet still exciting, comfortable yet still passionate. Afterward, Emma lay in Isaac's arms and thought about how far they'd come from that awkward first meeting. "What are you thinking?" Isaac murmured, his fingers tracing patterns on her shoulder. "That I'd do it all again. Every moment, every choice, even the hard parts, it all led us here. I'd do it again too, though maybe I'd kiss you sooner. I wasted a lot of time being stubborn." Emma laughed. "We both did, but we got there eventually." Years continued to pass in a blur of school plays, business triumphs, family vacations, and quiet moments of connection. Emma's architecture firm became one of the most respected in the city, known for innovative, sustainable design. Isaac's shipping empire continued to grow, but he'd stepped back from day-to-day operations to focus more on philanthropy and family. The foundation they'd built together had funded hundreds of projects, changing thousands of lives. Margaret went to college to study architecture, following in her mother's footsteps. The twins were in high school, both excelling in different areas but sharing their father's competitive drive. Emma and Isaac had more time for each other again, rediscovering the easy companionship that had first drawn them together. "Remember when we were so worried about being in each other's way?" Emma asked one morning, their routine eerily similar to those early days in Isaac's penthouse. They were making coffee together in their kitchen, moving around each other with practiced ease. "Now I can't imagine a morning without you," Isaac said, stealing a kiss. "You're still stealing my coffee, by the way." "It tastes better when it's yours," Emma protested with a grin. They'd aged together gracefully, gray threading through their hair, laugh lines deepening around their eyes. But Isaac still looked at Emma like she was the most beautiful woman in the world, and Emma still felt butterflies when he walked into a room. On their 25th anniversary, their children threw them a surprise party, filling their house with friends and family who'd been part of their journey. Caroline gave a toast that had everyone laughing and crying. "I knew," she said, raising her glass. "When I suggested Emma to Isaac, I had a feeling it might become something more. But even I couldn't have predicted this. You two didn't just make a fake engagement real. You built an empire of love, family, and purpose. You've shown all of us what partnership truly means." To Emma and Isaac, everyone chorused, and Emma wiped away tears of joy. Later that night, after everyone had left and the house was quiet, Emma and Isaac sat in their backyard, looking up at the stars. "Can you believe it's been 25 years?" Emma asked. "Sometimes it feels like yesterday we were sitting in that coffee shop, negotiating our arrangement. And sometimes it feels like I've loved you my entire life," Isaac said. "Like everything before you was just preparation for what we'd build together." Emma leaned her head on his shoulder. "Your grandfather's plan really did work out perfectly. I should visit his grave more often, thank him for being such a meddling old man." Isaac's tone was affectionate. "He gave me the push I needed to find you. We gave each other a chance," Emma corrected. "The circumstances brought us together, but we chose to build something real. Best choice I ever made." "Second best," Emma teased. "The best was agreeing to marry me again for real." "Okay, you win that one." They sat in comfortable silence, hands intertwined, hearts as connected as they'd been a quarter-century ago. 3 children, countless memories, and a lifetime of love had grown from a desperate business arrangement. It was proof that sometimes the most unexpected beginnings led to the most beautiful endings. As they finally headed inside, Emma turned back for one last look at their home, lit warmly from within. Every room held memories. Every corner reflected the life they'd built together. It was perfect not because it was flawless, but because it was theirs. "Ready for the next 25 years?" Isaac asked, holding out his hand. Emma took it without hesitation. "Ready for forever," she said, and meant it with every fiber of her being. They'd started as strangers with a contract. They'd become partners, friends, lovers, parents, and soulmates. The fake engagement had become the realest thing in both their lives, and neither of them would change a single moment of their journey. Because sometimes, the most transactional beginnings led to the most genuine love stories. And theirs was one for the ages.